I gotta tell y'all a secret. I don't actually want to be self-sufficient. Let me just say before I go any further with this video that this is my story and my thoughts and my opinions. Yours may be different, and just because I say something on this video you disagree with, it's not a personal attack at you. It's just this is my YouTube channel and my thoughts on the matter. So we are heading across our farm. I am driving, but I am heading across our farm, literally. Years ago, we set out on a journey, I will call it. A self-sufficiency journey. And it's had a lot of twists and turns, a lot of bumps along the way, but here is where I find myself today, and I feel very strongly about what I'm about to tell you in this video, more than I ever have. So if you find yourself stumbling upon this video, let me give you a little bit of background so that it makes sense. Back in 2012, my husband, Ben, found himself with some health problems. We quickly realized how important gut health was, and that led us really to this whole journey. We realized that we needed to start raising some of our own food in order to have access to it. We found a local farm, but to feed ourselves on a one income budget and just the place we found ourselves in our life, we realized we were gonna have to do part of the sweat equity, part of the work in order to be able to afford this new lifestyle that we wanted to live. The thing we realized that we needed to clean up in our diet first was pork. That was gonna be the hardest source of meat for us to come by a clean version. So we bought our first pigs. A lot of you know our story already, so I'm not going to bore you. If you don't, we have a whole YouTube channel, hundreds of videos that you can watch to get to know us. But fast forward, one thing led to another. People always say chickens are the gateway animal. For us, it was pigs. And one thing led to another, and we started raising pretty much every source of protein there is. And we already had gardens. We expanded those. We just dove all in, basically. We basically had the mindset, if we could do one of something, we could do 3 or 5 or 10 or 100. So our farm operation just kept growing and growing. And we just kept going into more and more things. We got bees, and we didn't do that small either. And we realized if we can raise enough honey for ourselves and for other people that don't want to raise bees, or raise enough pigs for people that don't want to raise pigs, then we can fund our operation of our journey to self-sufficiency. Sorry for the truck noise, but I'm actually just taking you guys around to do chores with me today, and these are just noises of the farm. And speaking of the truck noise, I remember Ben and I having conversations about wanting to produce pretty much everything ourselves. And I remember Ben asking me, what do you think is one thing we're gonna have trouble producing for ourselves? So I want you to pause this video and think about what would your answer be. If you were trying to be completely self-sufficient, what is the number one thing you're gonna struggle with producing for yourself? So as I thought about that, I thought, what is he getting at? Because sometimes Ben, well, a lot of times, he's a pretty deep thinker. And I thought, he's got something in mind. What is it? And I don't remember what my answer was, but I remember what his was. And he said, I really think we're gonna struggle producing our own electricity. So this was actually a few years ago, before solar was as popular as it is now. So I know you may be thinking, well, you can use solar. I don't know how much solar it would take to run all the electricity that we have going on. We use quite a bit of electricity with our market. We have lots of freezers full of things, and I know a lot of people say, well, to be self-sufficient, you can everything and all the things like that. But to can that much meat is easier said than done. And so that was a pretty big hurdle we had to consider, because y'all, we were serious. We were trying to do as much for ourselves as we could. We'd even thought about, and we knew people that were growing their own feed for their animals and just all the things. We had milk cows, we had vegetables, and just everything. We were really trying to do as much as we could. Also, gasoline. That was another thing we had considered. What are we going to do about using gas? Because if you're not going to use electricity, or if you're going to try to use limited electricity because you're going to be producing it yourself, or whatever the case may be, a lot of homesteaders use gas. A lot of homesteaders use vehicles and side-by-sides. Even if you don't use those, you're most likely using chainsaws and all those kinds of things. Or take the electricity. A lot of people are using like battery operated tools and things, drills and all kinds of things. So unless you're going to go very, very primitive, you're going to want those things. And I know that can be done. Primitive can be done. But if you actually go back, read books, watch documentaries that are fact-based, and look at like primitive ways, our goals and our pace of life these days just don't fit with that. So you're going to have to change everything if you're going to go primitive. You're going to have to realize that it might take you, instead of months, it might take you years to build a home. So I'm absolutely not saying it can't be done. But what I'm saying is it takes a lot of life changes for that to happen. And I think we realistically knew we couldn't go that primitive. Not that we couldn't, but we weren't going to. And so we were kind of at a crossroads. So around about that time, we had put an immense amount of pressure on ourselves on being self-sustainable. Then about 2018 came along. 6 years we'd been slowly on this journey to self-sufficiency. And then YouTube entered our lives and pretty much changed everything. And no, not because we got rich, not because we got famous, because neither one of those things really ever happened, but because it opened our eyes, and because it brought a lot of people into our lives like you guys, because it showed us that there's a whole world of people out there with the same goals as us, like-minded people. There's a whole lot of people out there that aren't like-minded, and that's okay too. It opened our eyes, it stretched us, it caused us to question everything, which, let me give you a little hint, is not a bad thing. Because if you question everything for yourself and come to conclusions on what you truly think and believe, you truly think and believe those things. Not just because someone told you or because you were raised that way, but because you truly believe them. And so we faced a lot of things about ourselves in seeing ourselves on camera. I would encourage everyone, film a few videos of yourself and your family interacting in genuine situations, not staged or not really paying attention to the camera, and see who you really are. It'll cause you to face some things that you don't really like about yourself. And that is one of those things about self-sufficiency that we had to come face to face with, was this is our goals and this is what we're striving for, and we really don't like this. For one thing, when you start focusing only on self, that doesn't generally bring out the best. It's when you're focused on others and things other than yourself that generally you're the most kind. Now, I know today, in today's world, a big movement is take care of yourself. No one else will if you don't. You're your biggest fan, you know, self-care and all of those things are okay. I'll say in moderation. But when your goal becomes only self, I think you're missing a big part of the beautiful parts of life. So we had met a lot of people that we were connected to at this point. We'd also seen a lot of things in ourselves that we'd gotten caught up in, and we were basically running ourselves ragged. We didn't like the path that we were on, and to be just frank with you, journeys to self-sufficiency can be kind of lonely. And I think we were created for community, and I think we were seeing a hunger for that in ourselves as well as other people. Hence the springing up of all the homestead festivals all around the world, basically. I think that was a need for community and for connection. And so everything started to shift, and we realized we didn't want to be self-sufficient at all. You see, we didn't want to be dependent only on ourselves. We wanted a community around us. If there was something we couldn't do, we weren't equipped to do, or maybe we just didn't want to do, it wasn't our desire to do this, that, or the other on the homestead, but someone else did, we could support them while doing the parts that we felt called to do and do those well instead of spreading ourselves so thin. So that began our process of kind of trimming down what we do. And I know you may watch our videos now and say, well, you still do everything, but we really don't. If you go back and look at things we did earlier in our videos and in our journey, some of those didn't make the cut. They've been trimmed out. Those are things we now buy at the store or buy from other homesteaders or whatever the case may be. I've recently begun a market. I'm hoping this has been the year of building and getting going, but I'm hoping next year to be able to bring in other farmers and homesteaders and artisans with what they're good at and their specialty, and it be a community market and a community thing. It's a beautiful cycle to be community sufficient. Now, will we ever produce our own electricity and gasoline and grow all our own feed? I don't know, probably not. But we have a feed mill that is run by a family in our community. And there was a time we were bringing in feed from a long way away. We've since switched that, and now we exclusively buy feed from them because that is bringing money into our local economy. They're a family we know and trust. They may not have the labels like organic and things like that, but we see their practices all around us. We see their organic practices. And I think it's time that we get away from we get away from government labels, and we get back to grassroots down-home communities. And so that's why we don't want to be self-sufficient anymore. We tried that. And just to be honest, it's a hamster wheel I'm glad we're not on anymore. And I'm glad instead we stepped off of that into I'm not even gonna say a race, a walk with other community like-minded people that honestly, this journey for us of farming and homesteading has never been more enjoyable for us than it is now. And I think that's because we have found our groove. We have found our people, and we have found our limitations. We've realized that we can't do it all, and just to be quite honest, we don't want to. One last thing I want to leave you with is sometimes when we are only focused on self, and in this case self-sufficiency, we cut out God, and we cut out the things He wants to do in our lives and the ways He wants to bless us. And I am no prosperity gospel preacher or believer for that matter. Meaning, you just name it and claim it. Anything you want, you can have and all that. Sometimes life just doesn't work that way. Tell that to the mom who's lost her children, or the family that the dad's lost his job. Did they just not have enough faith? I don't believe that way. But I do believe that sometimes we miss blessings because we're too focused on doing it all ourselves. Some of even you guys have blessed us at times that you have no idea how low we were, but you let God use you to bless us. And somebody out there needs to hear that you've been trying too long and too hard to focus on self and what self can do, and it's let you down. And God has been standing there the whole time waiting for you to invite him into your situation. And I challenge you to do that. I'm not saying give up on your dream, but I'm saying give up on the struggle. Give up on the struggle of trying to do it all yourself, and let God into the situation and sit back and watch what he does with it, because I think you'll be amazed. All right, guys, I'm turning off this little farm road. I got to hop off here. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me, and I'll see you guys on the next one. God bless.